Okay, welcome everybody. We're just waiting for Dr. Tom for our Miracles, Magic, and Coffee show. So if you're on YouTube, good morning or good evening or whatever time of day it is. Hello. And I'm going to go ahead and put this in the email. So that way, if you want to be part of these every week, part of our world, then you can go to the link for that. Let me just do this. This will take just a second. Just hang out with me for a little bit. This is going to be a good show. It seems to be really pertinent right now because, some people seem to get what they want in life, and other people seem to have the same kind of problems show up over and over again, or things just keep reoccurring or staying in ways that aren't that useful for them. So let me just make sure this works, and then yep, we are good to go. So this is on YouTube, it's in your email, and we're waiting for Dr. Tom. So as I was thinking about this show, and the way this works is I tend to wait till the download happens, like when I get the message from the universe, from God, about what the show is going to be about. And sometimes we have Dr. Tom Gimateo on, longtime friend, teacher, colleague of mine, integrative manual therapy teacher, developer, and sometimes it's just me and Jen. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes it's me with other people. But it's to help figure out what's in the way of people, of you guys, of us getting what we want, success. And a lot of it is, health stuff, how to get over autoimmune conditions, how to get over anxiety conditions, how to get what you want in that world. But there's also, it seems to be tied to relationship stuff and money stuff. So I'm going to be asking Tom about some really cool things. Hey there, Misty. And if you want, you can leave messages in the chat or also in the comments, if you see the comments, because I think the comments stay as we go along, as it goes in a replay. I don't know if the chat stays. But anyway, so I as we get ready for Tom to get on, one of the things that happened, there's been a few times when I had a certain pattern going on in my life, and I was like, what is going on? And one of them was interesting. There was a time when, I don't know if Tom remembers, but I don't know if I heard from them directly or from other people, but it was like, I don't want to get on an airplane with you, Ralph, because there's a chance it could go down. Because there was a time in my life when I was always getting in accidents. I mean, I've been hit by a car when I was walking across the street pretty hard. That was a pretty crazy one. I've had my rental car totally destroyed by a train, a coal train that hit it on the tracks. Luckily, I was about 20 feet away, running away from it. Lots of falls, lots of all sorts of accidents. And one of the things, there's a few things as I was going through this to clear it. And one of the things, as crazy as it sounds, I had some consultants, some business consultants, and they were Scientologists. And so I wasn't a Scientologist. I remember one time I was doing some of their coursework, and one of the women that was working with me, she realized, she said, "Oh my God, you're not a Scientologist." And I'm like, I'm just taking these classes because my consultant wants me to take these classes on communication. But anyway, I ended up going down to the Caribbean, 10 days on a ship, a cruise ship, their Scientology cruise ship. And halfway through it, I would have just taken my keys back to my car and my passport, because they take your passport when you get on those big cruise ships. And I would have just flown back to Southern California because it was so hard. But this Russian guy told me once, he could barely speak English. He said, "Big obstacle, big win." And I was like, yeah. And by the end of the 10 days, it was quite transformative. And I was the kind of guy that if cops were behind me when I was driving, I would just like think bad thoughts about it. Or like, what do they want? Why are they behind me? It's like they're just driving behind me. But I had this issue with authority, and that might be Tom calling. I hope he can get on. And let me go ahead and invite him. Let's go ahead and invite him. But after, where's my participants? I don't know why it doesn't say invite participants. Yeah, Tom might be having a hard time getting on. I don't know what that is all about. Hopefully he'll get on. But what I realized was there was one of the exercises, there was a few things that shifted this pattern of being in accidents for me. And one of the things they had me do was to write down, just journal like crazy, extended journal of all the ways that control is good. Now, I was of the mind that control was bad because, you know, I was controlled by a stepdad and all sorts of issues around control and authority. But I, you know, then I got, you know, right now we're in the coronavirus thing. I need a haircut. So one of the things that control is good for is control your hair, control your finances, control the way traffic flows with stop signs. So I started to write down all the ways that control is good. And it was part of a whole series of stuff I did to help people communicate better. And when I got off the plane in Miami, we went from the Caribbean to Puerto Rico to Miami and then back to San Diego. When I got off the plane in Miami and I saw all the people, I was filled with so much love, so much love. It was like an incredible shift and transformation for me. And at one point on the airport coming out of Barbados, they stopped me. It was a small little airplane. They stopped me and said, "We're going to check your bag." So they went through and they checked me, you know, did a search of me and searched every bit of my bags. And I was amazed that I had zero issues with the authorities, with the officers doing personal checks on me. And I'm like, wow. And the interesting thing is, after I cleared my own issues around control, never had another accident like that again. Knock on wood, but never had another accident. And they said that the Scientologists said that that's a stable datum. That's the thing that's pretty consistent, real consistent, what they would say, 100% consistent, that if somebody has a lot of accidents, they have issues with control. And if you can get over your issues with control, and part of that is figuring out how control is good, what control is good, then you not only shift the accident issue, but you also have a greater love that shows up. So quite interesting. And so so that was a pattern that had affected me my whole life. All these accidents all the time until then. And another time I was working with Tom's wife, the late Sharon G. Mateo. I have a feeling Tom can't get on. I'm gonna try to send him the link. Oh, I don't think I sent him the link. God Lord. No, I sent him the link. Hang on. But another time sorry about this. We're like family here, so bear with me here. I don't see a message from Tom, so let me just send this back to him. Hang out for just a little bit. Let's get the Zoom link back to Tom. Because I really want him to, he just gave us a big, what's called a blueprint and a template to clear these kind of things. And so here goes to Tom again. Okay, so, oh, there's Tom. Yeah, let me tell him this. This will be great to have him hear this story because this was about him. Let me just go ahead and move him over to attendee. How do I do that? To panelist. Oh, there he is.
Hi, Ralph.
Hey, Tom. I told a story about working with those Scientology consultants. Remember those guys, Survival Strategy? And
Yep.
Let me see if I can get your picture on here.
I'm looking for the camera myself to see if it's me.
For some reason, I still have you as attendee, and I need to try to like move you over, but I don't see how to do that. Oh, there it is. Let's see. Let me go move you over. Promote to panelist. Yeah, and so they worked on issues around control that I had, and once I cleared my issues about control, I no longer had accidents. Remember, I used to have all sorts of accidents. I think, I don't know if you remember, but Sharon, I think, was half joking about it once when she said, I don't want to get on a plane with you, Ralph, because I was, cars were hitting me, and cars were hitting, my rental car was hit by a coal train once, and all
Yep.
sorts of stuff like that. So,
Ralph, you have to turn on my camera.
okay, let's see. Boy, let me see. I don't see that option. It usually gives me a thing asked to start camera. Let me go over here.
Last suggestion is if you recording, let me try over here. Rename.
Oh, weird how it, here, let me see. Oh, I see something. Probably a chat. Oops.
Just be a voice in the background if you want.
So weird. Oh, I wonder, oh, you know what I might have done?
You cannot start the video because the host has disabled it. Okay.
You know what I did? I didn't, I wonder if I can change settings, video settings. I must have put it where I didn't allow people to be on video by accident. Let's see.
If you touch the chat button, you can actually see all the directions.
Okay, let me go get that. Oh, here we go. Allow panelists to start video. Okay, I think we're going to be good. Here we go. Thank you for that. Oh boy. Okay, so yeah, I was telling a story that one time Sharon was working on my heart, and we were in Albuquerque in one of those intensives, and you guys were all there, and really good work done on me. And I somehow told Sharon about that every single girlfriend and wife up to that point, at the time, only one wife before that, every one of them had cheated on me. And Sharon didn't miss a beat. She goes, okay, start to think about 25 ways that you disrespect women. And I'm like, what? They were all cheating on me. And but I was like, okay, Sharon, she wasn't going to like debate it. So I just went inside and thought about all those things, and they worked on my heart. And ever since then, then it was Jen, and no problems like that at all. So I solved this problem that was like lifelong, that then shifted. And so today I thought, you know what? There's all sorts of stuff that that seem to show up over and over again in people's lives, whether it's a physical condition that's not going away, or they get another physical condition, or an accident, or issues around money, or issues around certain things with relationships. It's always this kind of guy that shows up, or some kind of problem. So I thought we could talk about the integrated manual therapy approach and your approach, and anything else you think about, like that can help people if they're dealing with something that just keeps happening, how to get to that. The spiritual stuff gets in the way, mental, emotional, and you sent the templates and blueprints, so I'll share that. But yeah, what do you think?
Well, there's patterns that we generate and patterns we get stuck with. And it's interesting, like you said, when you discover the core of that pattern, it seems to go away at that point. So that's always the good piece of that too. And even when I met Sharon personally, I was attracted to a different type of lady before her, and then doing a lot of self-reflection, and then my patterns after 2 years of saying, okay, I don't want to attract this type of person. I'm going to go and do a lot of healing in myself. And the outcome, Sharon was the person I met and picked and stayed married with until she passed away. 21 years worth of a perfect marriage. But yeah, it can be, for patterns, it's pretty interesting. We had one client, her son, that always was tripping and falling, or things falling on his head. And she did a visualization there and said, why do you tell me what the picture is when you see things falling at you? And he said, I have a big magnet in his forehead. And he, with a little bit of visualization, and said, okay, can you turn that magnet around? He said, sure. And it took him like 20 minutes, and he gets up and says, okay, the magnet's not there anymore. And like 99.9% of his hitting his head had stopped after that point. So
Wow.
it could be anything. It's getting into a calm space and listening to the stories from inside.
Yeah. Do you think, like, if Sharon had 10 people that came with that problem, do you think she would have come up with the same magnet solution, or would it have just been something else that she accessed that got her to that thing?
Like, again, it's when you become an IMT therapist, we teach a lot about listening to the client. And in the psychotherapeutic realms, it's something that we use as a teaching tool, and a lot of our therapists use it, but we are not professionally certified as a psychotherapist, or I don't want to get those people, that group, pissed off at us at all. But we seem to have really good changes in behaviors and returning people to happiness and a better state of mind, because we really look at the structure and we really look at the outcomes that way. So one tool that I like to say that IMT or integrated manual therapists have is we talk about this piece called cellular truth.
Mm-hmm.
And you've known this when you had your hand on somebody, you can actually feel when the cells are all in a joy mode, and sometimes when they're in a fear mode. And there's a description of, do you have a mind thought, or are you having a cellular thought or a belief system? So in this era of being in the golden heart, do people, one of the triggers for yourself and maybe for others is, do I use a lot of think phrases? Like, I thought that, I know that, I wondered that. Those are all mind pieces. And the mind sort of disassociates from the body. And we can have a heart truth, but we've been trained with our society to really push away our feelings, So, but the cool thing about an IMT therapist is you could be talking and having a nice chat, and like you bring that one statement of all my girlfriends did this, and you can feel when it jumps up into the mind instead of being something that the person is truthful about in their whole body.
Yeah, we can feel it, and people can have, people can feel that there's a difference between, oh yeah, that's true, and I'm just thinking about it. Yeah. So
Dr. John Upledger wrote a book called The Inner Physician, and he talked about this place where people get into, he coined the word somato-emotional release. So even some craniosacral therapists, when they take the somato-emotion portion of that course, they're also trained in the tell what cellular truth is, and it creates this thing called the still point. So a few different body works have recognized this along the way, that we overthink a lot, and we use that process.
yeah, and so if somebody has something that's been a pattern for them for a long time, you have the some templates and blueprints, and I can share those with people, and self techniques that you can do for yourself to start to clear stuff. Let's go through some of them. Like I had a client years ago, and I won't tell too much specifics to keep privacy, but basically she came to me after a car wreck that had been bothering her for years, and nothing was helping. And so her therapist found me, and she found me, and when I put my hands on her, how we can tell spiritual pain, mental, emotional stuff, there was a deep spiritual pain in her lungs. So I just basically pulled out the blueprints that are in the lung management course, and did the despair and sadness and grief blueprints, and her neck and back were getting better. And so she asked me after a treatment or so what we were doing, and I told her, and then she told me the story of the people that she had lost. And so by the end of her sessions, she told me that she thought it was all gone. Her neck and back and head were good, but she said she thought the reason, this was just her just talking to me on her last session, The reason that she had the car wreck, she felt, was to find this work, get this cleared, and then to truly let it go. And then they were considering moving to a different place, her and her significant other. So it was like, that's an interesting perspective. So, so when you think of, let's start with physical stuff. Like if somebody has just stuff that's physical stuff, you got Lyme disease, and they're the ones that catch the virus, and people have this COVID thing going on supposedly right now, and some people are real susceptible and they end up dying, and most people don't, just have mild symptoms, and some have no symptoms, and some probably don't even get it. And some people just they just don't catch stuff, and other people catch everything, or have a bunch of conditions that are just there for, that's just how life has been going. And sometimes it's, it can mark a point in time when it started, or maybe it was just early in childhood. How could somebody find, there could be physical causes, but if there's some of these other mental, emotional, spiritual causes, what do you think about, how do you get that cleared out so it's not just a thing that keeps happening?
First process is being open to that premise that it could not just be, we've been trained a lot in the United States is I have this doctor to do this to fix it, and this doctor to do that to fix it. And we've been trained to be these, okay, if medicine can't fix it, then there's no possibility for it. So to be open to the awareness and to the process is interesting, that like COVID is really attacking the blood supply and also the lungs. So there's a lot of guilt and grief going around, and we don't really do well with that piece. So I believe that, when clients come to me and I listen to their history, or I hear that they have asthma or a breathing problem, or if they're a smoker, either marijuana or cigarettes, and those clients come to me and basically say, you're probably going to ask me to stop smoking. And I say, well, I understand when people are using those tools to help survive, and it's a survival tool, they probably have a lot of guilt or probably a lot of grief, and that's been documented in a number of different societies, acupuncture. If you look at Barbara Loe Fisher's book, not Barbara Loe Fisher, Louise Hay's book on You Can Heal Your Life, and she in the 80s was one of the first alternative medicine people to start to document how mind, body, and connections really work. So I always recommend that the book You Can Heal Your Life. And for any twitch you have, she has even down to the little finger on the left side. What does that mean for an emotion or a connection? And I have to share that story with you. That really brought that home to me. For a self-personal journey, if you put in Louise Hay and body symptoms, and you type in elbow or foot, it will give a comment saying like knees are about fighting with authority, bending to authority, or low back pain is about finances, kidneys about fear. So that's one introduction into that awareness. Because if it didn't get fixed with a physical therapist and it didn't get fixed with the drug injection, it's probably one of those other two beings of emotion or spirituality. And again, our society is not really set up for that piece. So I invite everybody to challenge themselves to figure that out. And my own personal story about that was I was working with Dr. Ledger in the 1994, 95, and I had entered a new place of discovering things about myself. And one day I got pink eye, and I probably had during that time up in my life 4 or 5 incidences of pink eye in my life. So I had just finished a really good body work and emotional connections, and I was healing and taking out all the information. And one day, I felt that I was emotionally disconnected from myself, and I needed that to survive. And I'm learning how to touch emotion again. And then this pink eye came up, and it was there for a week. So I went to Dr. Ledger, who was an osteopath, and asked him for a prescription. And a week later, I'm still having this raging eye that's dripping and oozing. And the week after, I'm sitting there with my significant other at that time. And I said, my eye is really frustrating me. I wish I could get to the bottom of this. And the next day I walk into my office and Louise Hay's book is sitting on the corner of my desk. And I opened it up and looked up what conjunctivitis or pink eye was, and it said frustration in the world and disconnection.
Wow.
So as soon as I read that component and said, okay, I just have to figure out how to live into that statement. Within 30 minutes, half the drainage and half the redness went out of the eye. And the next morning I woke up, it was one of the perfect ones.
So it was just a matter of like realizing what it was about, and then just live into it, like just go, oh, that kind of thing. And,
Yep.
and then it just did its own shift, huh?
Yeah. And so another great book is The Body Wisdom by my wife, Sharon Gimateo, which brings these hand connections in and tells you how to do them and a sequence in doing them. And there's 40 different repairs in from back pain to headaches to toothache there. But
I mean, I still use that.
Yep.
A lot. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
And another suggestion is if you have a rash, type in, I always suggest this to my clients and all my students. If a rash keeps occurring in the same spot over and over again, why don't we look at the acupuncture chart?
Yeah.
And see where that is. And, you may get the inside of your elbow on the right side, and there will be like 3 or 4 acupuncture points there. And if you open up and say, okay, let me go see what liver 27 looks like. And there's a huge description that the Chinese wrote 6,000 years ago, and it would probably 80% connect to that issue. That
I have a story about that right now that I'm kind of working through. That's so interesting. Many months ago, maybe a year ago or so, I had a rash, and Jen was like, "Oh, this is on the kidney meridian," and I worked on myself. It cleared, but then I have a question about how the universe can do things. But a few days ago, a week ago or so, maybe more, Baden just I was laying down sleeping. He jumped right on my rib cage hard, like on purpose. I was asleep, but it was like and my kidney just hurt. And then my whole leg had an issue, and then it got a rashy, itchy thing along that same meridian, and then he recently did it again, a smaller physical thing. I'm trying to figure out a way to like do that, but I'm like, does the universe do stuff like or what do you think about, like, maybe I have to look at the fear thing or the kidney thing, or but there's this physical thing that happened, like the universe kind of like almost like I sought out something to go boing, and then kind of bring my attention to it. I had a friend who was a big rage. He had a big rage thing going on, and a bee literally stung him right at the frontal nasal junction, which is the rage point. What do you think about like the way the universe? Is it playing with us? Is it just trying to show us something? Can we learn or use this kind of information?
Well, on a metaphysical level, Ralph, we meet people where they're at. Sometimes they just come in because they're I just want my elbow fixed or my headache fixed, and they don't want to hear any of that. And then other people asking that why question. And the patterns do continue to show up until you get it right. And I call that 2x4 theory is that, the universe or God is tapping you on the shoulder, and if you don't hear it, it keeps getting louder and louder. Yeah. And you've had this, and I've had this. Some clients, you have them for 4 or 5 visits. They come in, they had shoulder pain. You fix it. They feel good. You fixed it. You're ready to take them out of therapy, and some magical thing, a suitcase out of a airplane falls on their shoulder, connection of did I get it right and how do I get it right?
So that seems to be a pattern with a lot of people. I mean, I had that just recently, and I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to figure out here? Is it a matter of doing more of the one hand here, one hand there homework? Some of your templates or blueprints, Louise Hay's book, just sitting and trying to figure out, listening into your body. When you're trying to asking the question and then just sitting there like, what is this about? Or what do you think?
Um, on a psychotherapeutic need, it's what does your soul journey need to feel safe enough to tell you that story?
Oh,
So sometimes it's the body work, and sometimes it's developing a safety chain of some type, or but you know, that's what I really feel is when I'm contacting an individual and I'm here to assist them. And you know, one thing I found interesting in my studies was the word physician actually means teacher.
yeah.
So as a healer, you're supposed to teach the person how to get their answers for themselves somehow, right? So the neurofascial processing that, you know, you're going to pass on opens those doors up and gets them connected. It's like giving you and your inner kids a hug. And we had one case where we were playing with that technique, and you know, in the technique we say connect that system for 10 to 20 to 30 minutes, and then can move on. But one day we were sitting there, and a woman in her 40s was coming. She was a great therapist, had a lot of trauma in her life previous to this, and history of one or two bad marriages and suffering. And whatever came of it, we decided to give her 50 hours of holding one connection.
Wow.
So she had 50 hours of holding the bridge of her nose to her liver. And she happened to be living with us at the same time.
Oh, wow. And did you
Yeah.
guys get that? It's just like when that information came to you, you felt the cellular truth, and so that you went with it, or how did you know
Yeah.
that was out of all those connections and stuff that was your thing?
Well, it's been shown in, again, many different formats. You know, there are computer systems. One of them is called the Zyto. Another one's called the Intero, which are called EAVs, electroacupuncture Vol systems that can digitize this. And then, you know, through your matrix or through muscle testing, you can actually get doses of when you're connecting to that person's inner physician. You can say, well, do I want to give them one zinc tablet? And is it once a day? Is it 4 times a day? Is it once a week that they need it? So there are many systems taught out there that can answer that question of, so as you become a healer and you learn those things, you can have just open to hearing that person. You get a connection of their subconscious, and the subconscious knows what the best healing is for it. So you start to talk, you have a direct dialogue without the brain getting in the way is the best way to get the answer.
Yeah, I know IMT has a whole series of talking with permission, of course, to the subconscious with the person and getting the data. Yeah, I love that question. What does your soul journey need to feel safe enough to show you what this is about? That's a great question.
Yeah. Or how do we get support? You know, that may be even too overwhelming. Or what does that pain tell you? You know, so sometimes it's just stopping and say, does that pain have a message to you? If that elbow could talk, what does it want to tell you? And there was a trick that you could say, okay, my elbow wants to tell me this. And you at least do 15 to 20 times.
Oh.
And your brain gets tired after 10. So you can make up stories for the first 10 if you keep trying to write, you know, you just say, okay, my right sore elbow says this, you know, I hate shopping, or I don't like to do laundry, or after the 10th or 15th of them, when you get to number 2, you know, the last 3 or 4, they're really, you've worn out your mental capacity. So you're really getting down to your subconscious capacities there. So,
and you can feel into it, and you'll know the cellular truth. It'll be like, that's it. You'll just know it because you know it.
Yeah. So you've been in those exercises. Okay, say that same statement 10 times, and we fill in the blank at the end, and we pull the last 3 or 4 of them out. And that's more of a cellular truth to that answer too.
That's an awesome.
If people like to do journaling, it's like, okay, my right big toes hurt me for the last 8 years, and you'll be, my right toe wants to tell me this, or what does the pain have to teach me? And maybe it'll take that first number 10, or if you keep doing that 4 or 5 days in a row, I'm sure you're going to get to some things that are going to be enlightening in that story.
Yeah, surprising, enlightening. You'll go like, ah. And then
Yeah.
using the body wisdom book is a great way just to kind of, it's as simple as putting one hand here, one hand there for 20 minutes and going through a series of those, and it can unlock.
Yeah. And so any pain and difficulty, I would say you could take that pain site to, 3 areas is your heart, the bridge of the nose, and your liver.
Yeah.
Heart, bridge of nose, and liver, and then the bladder. So the heart brings circulation and compassion to it. The liver helps with frustration and rage. The bridge of the nose is an area of toning down the mind. And the bladder helps with drainage of all that piece. So
that's a great system. Yeah.
Yeah. And the enlightenment after you get those energies out of there is just amazing sometimes.
It is. And it's interesting. You can walk around afterwards and you can feel the physical body totally different. Like your feet are on the ground different. You're taller, you move easier. Lots of stuff can change real fast. We used to do these parties where one person would lay on the treatment table and there'd be 5 or 6 or however many people showed up to the house, and we would connect all the spots at one time. And when you got up off of that, man, you were different right away. So it's
that with 7 people giving compassion and just touching in a neutral position is amazing. We used to have high school students come in and clients would pay for that piece. Many stories have happened, and that's all in the back of the body wisdom book, and some of the more significant treatments are there. But this is the perfect time because last Thursday was the new full moon, which was began with the W, Wiccaw moon, but it was with Scorpio and Jupiter. And it was a lot of astrologers were saying when we get full moons and we look from Earth up, our unconscious starts to see a reflection of itself, even though we don't know it.
Oh, I love it. No wonder we were looking at the moon.
Yeah, and the last one was a super moon too, so it was close. It was a big mirror, and truthfully, my clients and the student body I'm working with definitely had reflections of uncomfortableness, antsiness. So that's been it's just been progressing all the month of May. That and you can hear in their voice that they're changing, and there's a fear behind the change of this new space.
Yeah, it can show up a rage or anger against somebody or something. But when you look in, it's like, it's the fear and the sadness and the deep stuff. Well, that feels really good. I think people are getting a good sense of that. I know it feels good to me. Let's see, anybody, we're getting some hand clapping on the little comments. So that feels good. It's a way to clear these patterns that show up over and over. What about if you use some of this for some of these like accidents or physical conditions, doing that, could that possibly shift financial stuff or just prosperity things or abundance or lack of abundance or that sort of thing, or even like patterns around victim, like some people just seem to be the target of other people. Like
we could we've had this discussion over the last 4 or 5 years and how we both have been working on how to develop wealth in our and prosperity in our own lives and stuff, and how many, and we've both shared with our ahas of what have unhooked our own personal pieces. So I feel that reflection is always super good too, to change that and to help answer those questions. Like there's some inner kids that are worried about getting hurt, so they will put their foot in your mouth for you and stop that pattern from happening sometimes. So and even the simple discussion is that, if you look angry, if you feel angry and you look angry, the world's not going to be loving back to you. So, and sometimes sometimes having your shoulders up in the your ears is a place that it gets stuck because it's been there for so long. And my example is, okay, you're running into the grocery store, you got 5 minutes to get back to the car, you go grab the bottle of milk in the back, and you come back and there's 3 cashiers there. And before you know it, you're picking the cashier, which you think is going to get you out the fastest. And the person that has the shoulders in their ears, you're probably not going to go to because you don't want that experience. So
Yeah.
our body structure leads to that. So if I'm always like this, I'm not going to be the person that's going to be accepting. And it may not be your fault. You may be like, okay, I'd love to help people, but the outside says the total different. And we have this nonverbal communication going on. So to unhook the shoulders and to look relaxed brings in more joy and pieces too. So
yeah. Going through the body, getting the body healthier and more at ease can shift those things. That's so good. Yeah. I know we're getting towards the end. I listened to one person that was an NLP practitioner. Just listened to her talking to an interview, and she was saying that I didn't look this up, but anyway, she was saying that there's the reticular activating system in your brainstem that searches out in the universe, in the world, to find the things that match up with your beliefs and your patterns and your thoughts. Is that I haven't heard that part before, the reticular activating system, until she said it. And I thought, well, that kind of makes sense just in how I think of things. You kind of search out things that match up with your beliefs. Is it in a certain part of your brain?
Well, any brainstem compression, which we always talk about, can facilitate that. And we do, why do you get attracted to this person? Why does somebody else get attracted to another person? Harville Hendricks in the 80s wrote books on getting the love you want. And he really goes and talks about the Harville Hendricks. Oh. And he wrote a really getting the love you want for a guide for the couple and a guide for the single person. And I really like the single person one because he has a 200 questionnaire there that really gets you to start to see your pattern of attraction to your significant others.
Isn't that interesting?
And he basically said our definition of love is generally developed between 0 and 7, whoever our caregivers are. So if you had, just your mother in your life or your dad in your life, that's the person that goes and can't see it, but everybody else sees it. It's like the spitting image of their mom that they marry. And then you have this collage of people, of grandmas and grandpas, and that forms it. But the interesting thing is, if one of your parents was an alcoholic, the symptoms of alcoholism are still connected to love with you. So you would be more trending towards that connection, because even though the alcoholism is something bad that we try to run away from, it also was nurturing to the child at some point. Not the alcoholic, but all those tendencies still are recognized as loved in that person's life.
Yeah, and I mean, it can be like overwhelming and kind of like, oh man, well, I'm screwed. But I remember seeing a client that worked with me for a while, and she was a singer, and she was singing a song for her mom, who was very elderly at the time, birthday, and you could see that she had broken that pattern, because her mom just total like fear and like just very uncomfortable in her body, and the daughter singing, you could tell she didn't have that. She had cleared a lot of stuff. So you can shift those things.
Yeah, every generation is healing from the other generations. So, and that's a term in homeopathy called miasms, that we can even have patterns from our grandfathers and stuff like that stuck in our body.
And we can shift them. This is awesome, Tom. Thanks. So just to review, Body Wisdom by Sharon G. Mateo has a lot of the hand positions. And then we got the Louise Hay book to kind of find out more stuff, but asking the question of what it's about, or what kind of support do you need, or what's it trying to tell you, and then journaling till you get to the deep cellular truth, like what it feels like. And then for more from Tom, center imtwellness.com and
imtwellnesscenter.com.
imtwellnesscenter.com, imtwellnesscenter.com. and you can email him at info@imtwellnesscenter.com. And then I'm at autoimmuneanswers.com. So awesome session, Tom. This one felt really good. They're all great, but I think this one was very much needed. So thank you.
Good, Ralph. Well, it's my pleasure.
Thanks, man. Okay, hope to see you.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay,
Bye.
bye, man.